been in the comments saying Kiki's having a baby, Kiki's pregnant, and I want to set the record straight. I am.
Christie's done numerous big franchises, but she said in the show Wednesday was her first time able to wear makeup. Gwendolyn Christie is one of the tallest actresses in the world, being 6'3". Because she's 6 inches taller than the average man and almost a foot taller than the average woman, she was told she would never succeed as an actress. And for a while, her critics were right, where she was rejected for 5 years until landing the role in Game of Thrones, which she had for 42 episodes. Doing the role, she was never able to have a more feminine side and always had to act more like a man. And that followed her to all of her other big roles, such as The Hunger Games and Star Wars, where her characters weren't allowed to wear makeup. It all changed for her with Wednesday, where Gwendolyn Christie, for the first time in her career, was able to wear full makeup. And that while she loves and respects the characters she's played in other shows, she always feels like they make her look ugly. Wednesday was the first time that she ever felt beautiful on screen. Gwendolyn Christie isn't the only one to have a problem like this, where on the opposite side, her Game of Thrones co-star Peter Dinklage had issues due to his height. Where Peter Dinklage was an unemployed actor for 5 years because he turned down roles playing characters like an elf. He was nearly homeless before being cast in Living in Oblivion, which he said was the first role he was offered not just due to his height. This shows how size can impact a career. With that, I'm Charles Perrault. I hope you learned something.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and thank you for joining me here for Conversations with Taz, Sit Down Sundays. Now, we got quite a few updates. As always, I told you, anytime that there's an update regarding the Shanquella Robinson case, I would bring it to you, and we have one. Y'all know the drill. See you in 2 and 2.
He said that according to his contacts in the prosecutor's office, they have more evidence than just the video. They have testimony from 2 people that are talking about the case and that are pointing fingers. Wow. And let me just take a second again, guys. Do you think fucking CNN is going to tell you this? Do you think ABC is going to tell you this? Do you think fucking Fox News gives a goddamn about black people in Mexico? Who thinks? I know some of you guys are so fucking Republican. Do you think Fox News is going to tell you about this? About a black woman being murdered by black people in Mexico. Fox News of all people. There's only one person giving us this information. All right? I didn't want to long stroke you at the beginning, but I had to like set a context for not so many of you have been so supportive. I am not going to lump you all in with the fucking few. All right. But we really need to understand and put some respect on this man, because he is doing a job that none of us would do, and especially not for the money. All right.
Now, as I told you all before, I kind of figured that one or more people that were involved with this trip would be speaking out, whether to cut a deal, to clear their names or whatever, because the only reason we know about this case and so much about this case thus far is because cell phone footage was leaked. So whoever leaked the footage, I'm pretty sure it's who is singing like a canary, but that gentleman is absolutely positively correct. The prosecutor in Mexico, chef's kiss. Thank you. If just make sure this young lady and her family gets justice. I have another update for you all regarding Brittany Griner. Coming from CBSNews.com, Blinken says U.S. still actively engaged with Russia over potential prisoner swap. Oops. Good grief. I hate when they decide to pop an ad up right in the middle of an article. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Sunday that the United States is actively engaged with Russia over a possible prisoner swap to free Americans Brittany Griner and Paul Whelan, who are in Russian custody. The proof will be in the pudding, Blinken said in an interview with Face the Nation when asked whether the Russians are serious about negotiations to release Griner and Whelan. We have to see if the engagements that we've had, the discussions that we've had, produced an actual result. That's the most important thing, but we are not resting on the laurels of having put forward a proposal some months ago. We've been actively engaged over these months to try to move things forward. If you remember, recently President Biden met with the Canadian Prime Minister, and during that time, he also alluded that he would be sitting down with Putin to, one, talk about ending the war between Russia and Ukraine, and two, also trying to further the negotiations for prisoner swap. Once again, I stand by what I said. If Paul Whelan wasn't over there also, the U.S. government wouldn't really give a rat's ass. And WNBA, you're way too quiet. You're way too silent on this. Way, way too silent for my liking. Now, there were a couple of protests going on this weekend. Let's start with the most terroristic of the protests and make our way down. Moore County, North Carolina, here's looking at you.
We continue to follow that breaking news out of Moore County. Right now, more than 30,000 residents are without power due to intentional vandalism. All this happening just before 10 o'clock last night. The Moore County Sheriff says the outage is currently being investigated as a, quote, criminal occurrence.
They appear to be countywide. Nearly 38,000 customers feeling the impact now, and Duke Energy is working with law enforcement trying to figure out what caused those outages.
Oh, what a sad story. All those people without power because some crazy little vandals shot up 3 power stations. What the news story failed to mention, all of them that I watched, all 3 of them, was that there was a highly protested drag show going on that night. People had threatened to shoot up the place. This is actual terrorism. Google some of the stories leading up to this incident. Do you think it would be terrible if men dressed up like women and danced around and sang on stage for other people that like to watch that? Is that awful? No, not so bad. You wouldn't go throwing bullets at the place? No, me either.
Hi, Andrew Wilkins in Moore County, just discussing what else is going on there. Cell phone signals are disrupted. Verizon's totally down. People who get their water from wells, the pumps are down. They're losing water pressure, so they're going to have to take water from the reservoirs. Local pharmacies are moving medications into people's homes who have refrigerators with generators in them. Police are being called in from across the state to help manage intersections. All of this is happening because domestic terrorists attacked the power supply. I mean, it's insane. Forget about the motives. Forget about if it was a drag show or not. People are doing this to other people. He goes on to discuss how restaurants, food is going to spoil. Hospitals. I mean, all of these awful things are happening because some assholes decided to attack the power supply. This is domestic terrorism, and they need to be treated as such when they are
Let's be honest. If anyone other than white people had done this by using guns to shoot up power substations, putting 40,000 people without power in North Carolina in the middle of winter, if anybody other than white people had done this, it would have been called an act of terrorism. But instead, they're calling it vandals. Call it what it is. Fucking terrorists.
Now, before I give my commentary, there are two more videos that I want you to take a look at because it appears that it's known who's behind it. And they also led the charge from this county during the January 6th self-coup. So let's go.
You ruined everything, you stupid bitch. You ruined everything, you stupid, stupid bitch. You're just a lying little bitch who ruins things and wants the world to burn. Bitch, you're a stupid bitch. And lose some weight. You ruined
it. To bully or harass anyone in any way. Now that we have that out of the way, I'm sure by now you've all seen the news out of North Carolina about this power outage. Well, I was doing my research, reading some of the articles, and a couple of them mentioned this Emily Grace person who posted on Facebook that power is out in Moore County and I know why. Emily is a former U.S. PSYOPs officer. This is her link tree. She is a traditional Catholic and a prepper. Her Facebook is public. It was also linked in one of the articles, which is interesting to me. But this is the post. This is the post immediately before it. And this is her most recent, right? Moore County Sheriff's Office just checked in. I welcomed them to my home. Sorry they wasted their time. I told them that God works in mysterious ways and is responsible for the outage. I used the opportunity to tell them about the immoral drag show and the blasphemies screamed by its supporters. God is chastising Moore County. This is another post around the same time frame. This one was a couple days ago. Here's another post of hers talking about eras being ushered in, corruption, prosecution, indoctrination. These are all buzzwords used by a particular group of people. It would also appear that, unsurprisingly, someone is not following the tenets of their own faith. This is on her Linktree, undercover at the drag brunch for kids. So another mention of drag brunches and children. Here's a link in the Linktree referring to January 6th. Additionally, she puts on her Facebook that she works at Moore County Citizens for Freedom, a group that publicly doxes owners of a property where that particular show was taking place. This is either spiritual psychosis or someone still playing a particular role that they used to work in. Either way, as I mentioned, Ms. Emily's Facebook profile is public. I blocked out her name on here just for guidelines. But if you want to see it, you can go to facebook.com/emily.rainey.94.
On her Facebook page, which is still very public, she, on November 17th, told people to leave a review for the Sunrise Theater. On November 18th, the Loving Accepting group is screaming obscenities and pulling out their blue hair at us, Christians, because we know the truth, what the truth is, and we defend it without wavering. Never let an atheist quote scripture at you. They do not know God. Their words are twisted blasphemies. She posted a screenshot of the names, handles, phone numbers, and email addresses of the sponsors for the Sunrise Theater drag show. She is very invested. Looked up ticket prices, the flyer, and see, this is what I don't get. If you say something goes against your beliefs, if you say something goes against how you live your life, why are you seeking out the information regarding it? Just don't go. Like, there are plenty of things that do not fall in my wheelhouse of hobbies or interests. I just don't go. No need to wage war. She has a video featuring Kanye West. Very, very telling. And she captioned it, "It's not just a drag show. What kind of society do you want to live in? Get off the couch and fight for the future. Victory for concerned citizens, protectors of children and decency." And she's got a video going on a rant. She took an Instagram post and captioned it, "Send this to your pastor." And from some gentleman said, "I was tired of complaining about the drag queen story hour movement, so I hosted a pastor story hour at a public library." And it's like, if you feel, first of all, if you don't want your children to be read to by drag queens, okay, don't take them. If your children are feeling left out because they have friends that are going, create your own story hour. Have a grandmama story hour. Have a pastor story hour. Whatever. Then she said, "Liberalism is a mental illness." Oh, 2 days ago, Moore County child denied kidney transplant because she is unvaccinated! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. No shit, Sherlock. That's protocol. Even before we knew about COVID-19, you have to be vaccinated. They're not going to jeopardize somebody else's life, whether it be a living donor or somebody else on the donation list, because you're not currently taking care of the working organs that you have in your body. Do you not realize the medications you have to take for the rest of your life after an organ donation? Do you not understand how compromised your immune system you know what? And then one day ago, say no to adult entertainment in the downtown. If you deem drag shows adult entertainment, don't take your children. If you don't want to go, don't go. Y'all don't even have this much vigor for strip clubs. And that's where most of y'all conservative husbands find their mistresses. But she really did say the power is out in Moore County, and I know why. But this is her most recent post after saying that the sheriff's office came, like, "Oh, they didn't find anything." Sweetheart, you haven't been cleared. Everything that you've put in your Facebook groups, I've watched it over the past 24 hours. Everybody has told on you and exposed you. But here she goes. She said, "Now that my name has been officially cleared by law enforcement, I will be filing libel and slander lawsuits." Words have definitions, words have meaning. Learn them. And just because they did not arrest you on site does not mean you have been cleared. Digital footprint, sweetie, digital footprint. But I will be turning all death threats into law enforcement. And one more thing, I stand by everything I have said. God will not be mocked because of lukewarm Christians and public displays of blasphemy and immorality in Moore County. Many innocent people are suffering. God uses bad people like the Babylonians in 598 BC and whoever shot the power station to chastise a people or a region. We brought this on ourselves. But riddle me this, Batman. If you have all this overwhelming support, because she's getting thousands of comments and likes and, some other, some mixture, but you're saying that your God is no different than racist, your God is willing to take down his fervent, most loyal followers and worshipers to teach the few a lesson? Why weren't the few punished? Because now you're affecting businesses, hospitals, the disabled, elderly, children. You're putting your own jobs at risk. It is not spring. Weather is not mild right now. We're in that transition phase where Mother Nature is cranky. We're at the tail end of fall, moving into winter. Pharmacies are having to reach out to unsecure locations that have generators. Because you want the United States, who has never had a nationalized religion, whose partial foundation was built on religious freedoms. And just like your founding fathers, you're using your Christianity to be tyrannical. How is something blasphemous when everyone does not practice the same religion? Someone else's practices are not blasphemous. They are just not yours. Let me repeat that. Someone else's practices, someone else's lifestyle is not blasphemous. They're just not your practices. It is just not your lifestyle. And you don't even, you sit there talking about don't let an atheist quote scripture to you. You don't even know your own scripture, because you Christians love to misquote. It does not. It says that an older man is not to lie with a younger man. That is pedophilia. You're going by the Nazi 1940s translation of the Bible so that Hitler could eliminate the brown shirts that he created with a gay man at the forefront. See, tyrannical people will use you until they need to exterminate you. Because free thinking and anything outside of their way of life is problematic and detrimental to them having control over everyone. But darlings, that is not the only drag show that was protested. That is not the only drag event that was protested. Let's move on to Ohio. Let's go.
A drag story time in Columbus, Ohio was canceled today because of planned protest by the Proud Boys and by police apathy. Watch this excerpt from their announcement today.
I stand here in this space where our school's parents and members of the church have so beautifully decorated last night. We borrowed trees, some of them from our kids' bedrooms. They let us borrow them. We built a photo booth. We have festive lighting, and we put together a stage ready for our performers. Their books were chosen, the holiday dance numbers were choreographed, and our students spent all week baking and making decorations, which you might be able to see some of. It turned out perfect, better than we had imagined. When the Proud Boys stated they would show up to intimidate and harass and bully our attendees and organizers, we had to make a decision about how we were going to keep everyone safe. I spent a week calling our police department and leaving voicemails about the reports we had seen. After a week, I was told we could hire a special duty officer who may or may not show up because they're understaffed. I was given an email address. In the meantime, a trusted community defense team with years of experience reached out with an offer to execute a thorough safety plan, including before and after event safety support, tech support, emergency plans, and a large on-site presence, all on a volunteer basis. They are members of the LGBTQ community who have a personal stake in ensuring this community's general safety. They gathered almost 200 people ready to create a perimeter shield and a barrier far from our building to keep things de-escalated outside. In the end, our performers felt unsafe without a police presence, while our safety team felt unsafe with a police presence. We decided it was not safe to proceed, and our Red Oak Planning Group made the call to cancel. While we felt strongly that the police's casual, distant acknowledgement of our event illustrated that they would not keep us safe, we also have to validate that our performers didn't feel safe unless there was law enforcement in the building.
Now, once again, let me remind you that SCOTUS itself said that protecting and serving is not the job of the police force. And you heard that there were people that were uncomfortable with the police presence. These children were excited. They chose books. They baked. They gave up their own Christmas decorations to decorate for this event. And you staunch conservatives, and mostly racist, because it always seems to be the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers that are going after these events. You're not winning these children over. They're not going to become members. They're not going to join your political parties. They're not going to take on your political ideologies. They are going to remember this. They are going to remember the hate that you give. They will become the most fervent fighters of your vitriol. You are creating an anti-army, an anti-you army that you've never seen before. Because you are now taking the childhood of little white kids away from them. See, historically and currently, white kids were never forced to grow up. White kids, even in the worst conditions, were always taught the world is yours. You can get this, you can get that. This is owed to you. But now you are taking things away from them on a grander scale than you did during post-antebellum and Jim Crow days. See, they could handle you cementing over one swimming pool, because that's when y'all started getting private swimming pools, and they could just go to their friends. When they could join the little country clubs and still go. They could join the YMCA and still swim. But now they're getting excitement from something. They're getting acceptance from someplace. And you're taking that away from them. You're giving them a fervent taste of what the BIPOC community has endured. They will have a different view and a different perspective because they're going to have a different lived experience. See, these are the ones that are going to call out white fragility, white guilt, and white privilege. Because now they're seeing all of those things weaponized against them. Now, before I go on to the final protest and tell you about that, for everybody so worried about drag queens, it's always one of your own. Isn't it, conservative conspiracy theorist?
One of the QAnon leaders turns out to be a pedophile. And we learned this because he also happens to be incredibly stupid and decided to file a defamation lawsuit, an ill-fated defamation lawsuit that led to a discovery process where we learned about the case involving him sleeping with a 15-year-old girl. Now, at the heart of this story is Phil Godulewski, who's got quite a following, to be sure, with more than 600,000 followers on the social media app Telegram and 156,000 subscribers on the alternative video platform Rumble. He profits from encouraging his fans to sign up for financial arrangements like a multi-level marketing scheme that sells silver. Earlier this year, he used his QAnon earnings to buy a $1.7 million house. But then he made a lot of dumb decisions, including filing this defamation lawsuit, which of course he lost, and we learned a lot of details about his past. So let's get to those details. In 2008, 9 years before QAnon began, a 25-year-old Godulewski worked as a high school baseball coach in a school district outside of Scranton. That's where he met a 15-year-old female high school freshman referred to in court records as BD. The student's boyfriend died by suicide soon after they had met, and the baseball coach comforted her. So perfect opening for him to be a disgusting predator. A few months later, with BD still 15 years old and Godulewski a decade her senior, he's 10 years older than her. So he's 25, she's 15, okay? They began a sexual relationship, according to police records and a sworn affidavit from Godulewski's victim that was filed in court in November. Now he love bombed her, right? He showered her with gifts, according to police reports, and a letter written by her parents filed into the defamation record, including a $2,800 pair of diamond earrings. He also lavished her with attention in the form of text messages, not smart, that laid out details of their sex life with more than 300 messages in one day alone. So what did the messages say? Realize that you're only 15, but quickly stopped caring, one of the messages read.
Of course.
Why are we so compatible, read another. I'm 10 years older than you. And in 2010, he was indicted on a raft of charges related to the alleged sexual relationship. In her recent affidavit, BD claims that he contacted her and begged her to recant her claims against him, threatening to kill himself if she didn't. In response, she stopped cooperating with law enforcement in the case. He ultimately pleaded guilty to a lesser count of corruption of a minor, receiving 3 months under house arrest. Now, he denies that there was ever a sexual relationship, but remember, through that discovery process in the defamation lawsuit, you learn about the text messages. You learn about the evidence in that case. So you can deny it all you want, but you put it in writing, you idiot. And remember, QAnon is the group that goes around accusing others of being pedophiles. I mean, how many of these stories do we need to do where the people accusing others of being groomers and pedophiles end up having some pretty significant skeletons in their closets?
Projection, projection, projection. Let's not forget that conservative Christian nationalists on the side of the GOP have been fighting to lower the age for young girls to get married. They're also fighting to lower the age of consent. I just dropped a link in the comments because let's not forget about good old boy Matt Gaetz that was paying underage girls through Apple Pay, Venmo, Cash App, you name it. His confidant was recently convicted of sex trafficking of minors. Video is 17 minutes long, approximately, well worth a watch. Like I said, there was a final protest this weekend, and coming from the Courier-Journal, protesters gather in Bowling Green for justice for Emmett Till. More than a dozen protesters gathered in Bowling Green, Kentucky on Saturday afternoon to demand justice for Emmett Till, a 14-year-old who was murdered in 1955 in Mississippi after whistling towards a white woman. Well, we know that one. A small group gathered in Kentucky, and it was maybe, I don't even think it was 50 people, maybe 20 to 30. I saw various people chronicling their participation in the protest. So a small group gathered in Kentucky because the woman who accused Till of whistling at her, which ultimately led to his death at the hands of 2 of her family members at the time, lives in an apartment complex in Bowling Green. A few months ago, while searching the basement of a Mississippi courthouse, somebody found an arrest warrant for Carolyn Brown's arrest, which was never served. It was a white supremacist who murdered Emmett Till, says Nazi Nasir X, the national president of the Lion of Judah Armed Forces, said. Till was murdered by Bryant's husband, Roy Bryant, and his half-brother, J.W. Millam. They were both found not guilty by an all-white jury after a 5-day trial. The protest, which numbered around 24 at its peak, told you, was led by a civil rights group named True Healing Under God, or Thug, and was attended by groups including the Black Panthers and the Lion of Judah Armed Forces, along with others that came to protest at the last known location of Brian and asked police to serve the arrest warrant that was found. There were a number of police officers standing to protect her home. There was also a SWAT vehicle less than a block away. It was in sight of the protesters. This is why we say ACAB, all cops are bastards. You're consistently protecting the wrong people on purpose. You're complacent and you're complicit in racism. But what do we expect from a branch of law enforcement that began just to track down, brutalize, and return Black people to enslavement? This is why to this day, they see our Black skin as a weapon and as a threat. And that is why we are taught, we are expected to be more in control and more level-headed during emergent situations than the people who were trained for the position. And how good can you be at this position when you don't even know the laws and it takes longer to become a cosmetologist than a police officer? But let them kill an animal. Oh, pure intimidation, start to finish. Now, before we get into the rest of everything that we have to get caught up, let's get into this season's ad. See you in 2 and 2.
Style. Style is the answer to everything. A fresh way to approach a dull or dangerous thing. To do a dangerous thing with style is what I call art.
Look at my son, Harold. Fine-looking boy. Nice eyes. Well, one of them, anyway. And that's what your hoodlum offspring did with his fists.
Our son used his fists.
All those karate lessons. Wasted. I'll thank you both to stop joking. My son has been sorely wounded, and I demand an apology.
Very well, Mr. Pomeroy, if it'll make you happy. I apologize.
Not from you, from that pugnacious child of yours. In, children. I understand, Pugsley, that you and Harold engaged in a little tiff this afternoon.
All I did was tear his jacket a little. It's our family crest. Well, you wouldn't have got a sock on the eye if you hadn't said your family was better than our family. Our family is better. It is not.
Children, I think you ought to apologize to Harold.
I'm sorry I punched you in the eye, Harold.
She must have hit him while his back was turned. In the eye?
Just a little bit of a throwback. Plus, that was the last time that Wednesday was depicted as younger than Pugsley. Just a little of the odd trivia, odd facts that I know. But remember when little Miss Candace Owens was trying to be besties with Kanye and defending, his original antics this year, just, not too long ago, about 2 months ago? and she was doing that so he would potentially bail out her husband for parlor. There's a change of heart. See, this is what happens when you cosplay a white man according to what you think a white man is and what you think a white man can get away with, and you forget that you are not the complexion for protection. And as always, check out the links in the description of the video. Here we go.
Parler terminated Kanye West's deal to acquire the right-wing social media platform after West went on an anti-Semitic tirade on Alex Jones's InfoWars show, with Parler saying, "You must be this white to be that racist."
Yeah, and see, even Candace knows where to draw the line. And just like Kanye West, she becomes black when she faces the racism that she says doesn't exist in the United States. She knew that he went too far. Plus, she can't afford to lose her job working for Ben Shapiro, a Jewish man. Now, we know recently we lost our beloved Green Ranger. Anyone that's a Gen Xer like myself or a millennial, we had one and only one Green Ranger. But recently there was a podcast that was extremely disrespectful in lieu of his passing. Let's take a look.
Trigger warning, this entire video is full of disrespect towards Jason David Frank by this group.
My respects to the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger who passed away. Oh, R.I.P., bro. Suicide. The Green Ranger, bro. Yeah, he morphed too hard. He morphed too hard. Morphin' time. You know.
Says, my respect to the Power Ranger that passed away. Immediately says he morphed too hard and made a cracking neck sound. The way the Green Ranger, Jason David Frank, unalived himself by hanging. Very respectful.
So he had this movie coming up called the White Dragon. I don't think he got to finish it yet. He was working on production. He probably went into debt. Custom-made costume. He's really fucking working hard for this shit. Fucking killed him. And then
This guy who's got all the respect for Jason David Frank hates Jason David Frank. Says how his movie bombed, hadn't even come out yet. Probably in debt. And makes fun of him having 3 first names. Like calling him a sick-ass foo. Yeah.
Now we know from recent reports that his impending divorce, mental anguish, a fight with someone near and dear to him was too much of a strain on his mental well-being. But to insinuate he was going broke and that's why he morphed too hard, I honestly hope that you never struggle with depression or suicidal thoughts. I honestly hope that you are never close to someone who does that, because you are the type of person that will push someone to the edge, pretend to give a shit about them, isolate them from everybody else, and talk shit about them till you push them over the edge and then cry at their funeral that they could have just come to you. That's the type of person you are, my guy. That is unequivocally the type of person that you are. But from one disconnected alpha male riddled with cognitive dissonance to the next. And this one, y'all, buckle up.
I married my wife like most people marry their wife because she was hot, she was beautiful, she was fun, she was smart, she was all those things. But it wasn't till about 10 years after we had been together when I started to think like, oh, for the first 10 years I was thinking, well, of course she has no capacity for reason. I don't understand a word she said. But then I kept noticing that she was right a lot of the time when she, and I couldn't understand it. And I started to think, oh, she's actually seeing the world from a different point of view. And that is like putting on those red and blue glasses that suddenly turn the world into 3 dimensions. You suddenly become one flesh, one person, and you see things in a new and deeper and richer way. And that to me transforms everything.
Now, keep in mind, he described his wife as hot and smart, then went on to talk about her as if she was a puppy. And then after 10 years of marriage, he finally realized her level of intelligence and that she was a fellow human being, that just because they don't share a body has a different lived experience and a different perspective on the world. And sadly, there are far too many men that are out there like that they do not see when they marry a woman. They do not see her as a human being, as an equal, as a partner. They see her as a cook, a maid, a caregiver, a method of control, mommy 2.0, that they just happen to be able to have sex with. But I guess. Now, let's delve into Chris Christie's niece and the flight that never happened.
Oh, have I got a good one for you guys this morning. Chris Christie's niece bit and kicked deputies trying to escort her off of Spirit Airlines. Yes, Spirit Airlines. After she asked passengers who she thought were Latino if they were smuggling cocaine. Now listen to this shit. Before the plane's departure for New Jersey, Shannon Epstein, yes, Epstein, reportedly made passengers uncomfortable after asking a family she perceived to be Latino if they were smuggling cocaine. After employees requested she be removed from the flight, Epstein resisted and began struggling with deputies. 6 deputies were injured, including one who was bit by Epstein. Another was kicked in the groin. Epstein was eventually detained after 7 deputies handcuffed her to a wheelchair. But the politician's niece reportedly taunted law enforcement by telling them that they would get in trouble for arresting her as a result of Christie's connections to former President Donald Trump. I guess she hasn't been paying attention to Chris Christie's views on Donald Trump lately, has she? But this is what really gets my goat. Epstein was released from Jefferson Parish Correctional Center the same day after paying $10,750 in bail. $10,000 bail after biting law enforcement and kicking one in the groin. $10,000 bail that day. Sounds about white. Imagine it's around Thanksgiving holiday. You're at the airport. You just want to get back home. You have some prissy white bitch coming out of nowhere saying you are smuggling cocaine because you are darker of skin color. Because you have a tint to your skin color, you are all of a sudden a family of cocaine smugglers. This is the kind of rhetoric that you get on the right wing. Do you find it coincidental that this is the relative of a right-wing politician? You find that coincidental? I don't believe in coincidence.
Still want to tell me racism doesn't exist in this country anymore? Still want to tell me that privilege doesn't exist? Still want to tell me that they don't go to great lengths to cover for one another, to skew statistics? How much you want to bet in the next couple days she was having a mental breakdown? She was stressed. Her words were taken out of context. They misquoted her. Think I'm joking? Now let's not forget that Buckingham has had a whirlwind of a week, okay? First, the Queen Consort acted like black skin on black children was toxic. Then we had Miss Hussey accosting a black woman at an event at Buckingham Palace. Let's take a look at some updates and how they're handling things. Oh, she was definitely looking for the plug.
Today in Bigotry Rots the Brain and Peak Poshness. This article from The Spectator by someone who is genuinely apparently called Petronella. It's about Lady Susan Hussey, who is a racist who did a racist thing and then had to resign from the royal household. A truly magnificent sentence. Awesome in the all the wrong ways. And now we come to the crux of this tragedy. Susan Hussey has no prejudices at all. She spent much of her life married to a man called Marmaduke who had one leg. So the existence of a one-legged man called Marmaduke means another human has no prejudices? Somebody wrote this, and other people decided that it should be published, and lots of other people think this way. This is like the posh English version of, some of my best friends are gay. Demerits to the whole thing. This article from The Spectator by someone who is genuinely apparently called Petronella.
I'd like to call your attention to one part of that article. People of Suhasi's generation did not grow up in multicultural Britain. This might make them old-fashioned, but Miss Fulani, who is a sophisticated media performer and the head of a charity, might have acted with some grace. Okay, so let's forget about all of the dog whistles in which she implies that Fulani is using this to increase her profile rather than to defend herself in a situation in which she was clearly attacked. And let's not focus on the fact that this was published in The Spectator, which is basically the wanking rag of the intellectual right wing. But let's focus on the expectation that is set here. An expectation that is sending thrills of discomfort in white majority countries at all levels. It's the expectation that minorities, women, the disenfranchised have patience and grace with those in power. We don't have to do that anymore.
Y'all, what the fuck did I just watch?
Well, this week, Buckingham Palace held an event on violence against women. Okay, of course, Buckingham Palace. And a bunch of activists, of course, showed up. And then a royal aide, 83-year-old Susan Hussey, made the mistake of asking one of those activists, Ngozi Fulani, a pretty simple question: where are you from? And that made sense because Fulani was dressed not in English clothing, but in full African garb. It's not an attack. She even changed her name to an African name. Her real name, actually, is Marlene Headley, but now she's going by Fulani. Whatever. She wants people to think that she's African. So that's all right. You know, you can pretend, you can say you are whatever you want to be, I guess. In the West, those are the rules. But now she's saying that it was racist for Hussey, this 83-year-old woman, to ask where she was from about her fake heritage. Watch.
She began to ask me, who am I? Where am I from? So I said, I'm from Sister Space. It's an organisation that supports African and Caribbean heritage women and girls. And then she said, oh, what part of Africa are you from? Yeah, but where are you really from? I'm really from here. No matter how uncomfortable it is for other people to accept, I'm very clear that I experienced racism.
Oh, be quiet and go away, please. Please, go away. Father Calvin Robinson is an Anglican deacon and a sensible person, joins us to assess. Father, thank you so much for coming on. So this seems to me, I mean, maybe I'm misreading it, like an attack on an 83-year-old woman for saying what's perceived as the wrong thing. Is anyone pointing that out in the UK tonight?
Absolutely, they have, and this is the problem. There's two parts to this, actually, because on the one hand, it is very sad in that it's an attack on an elderly woman for asking a very genuine question, taking an interest in a visitor to the palace. But on the other hand, it's quite a positive, I think, Tucker, because it shows how far we have come, in that we haven't eradicated racism yet, but we're getting very close, because we're at a point now where people are having to invent it where it doesn't exist. And the racial grievance industry are having to look wherever they can and purposefully take offence where it's not given in order to claim that they are racially abused.
I mean, I know that's fucker Carlson, right? And it sounds like he just told a black woman to be quiet and go away. Did I get that right? And it also sounds like he was saying that the 83-year-old racist lady is the one who was wronged in this situation. And he also managed to find a person of color clergy person to back him up on that and say that racism is almost over because people are having to make it up now. Did I get that right? Nope. Racism has not gone away. Just turn to Fox News and you'll see it 24/7.
Marmaduke Hussey was a bully and a racist. His relic of a wife needs no excuses. She has acclimated to every change that has happened, but the change of being accepting of marginalized people and respecting marginalized people. And for everyone trying to defend her, going, well, Fulani was in African garb. She was in a leopard print dress. Yes, she has locks. No, she wasn't wearing a tiara, but her locks were pulled up. And she had a lovely garnishment in her hair, which many women wear when they want to put their hair up. It's an accessory. Stop making excuses. These are people who have gotten accustomed to technology, new things within the world, how processes go. She's racist. Just like Meghan and Harry told y'all that the royal family was racist. And before you go, but Taz, wasn't there a black queen that they hid until they could not hide it anymore in the late 1990s? So miss me with all of that. Now, all you conservatives that are also in the ultra MAGA crowd, you MAGA publicans, that claim to be constitutionalists, what say ye now?
Reporting just coming into our newsroom, Trump is calling for the termination of the Constitution to overturn the 2020 election and put him back in power. The White House is now condemning him for this. Obviously, this is just more desperation from the former president.
Good Lord, I don't even know where to begin. Yeah. I guess I'll just summarize in response to Donald Trump's statement to say that virtually every word of that statement is wrong, crazy, and dangerous. The only accurate thing Donald Trump says is that to do what he's recommending would require termination of the Constitution, which of course would leave us without a democracy.
But I mean, it does underline once again his hostility to American way of life and democracy in this country.
Donald Trump just went on a Truth Social rampage and he said that the Constitution should be, quote, terminated. This is the guy who incited a violent insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Now, he's calling for America to discard of its Constitution. I don't know how many more videos I can make about this individual, but if I'm going to, it has to end like this. Merrick Garland, Jack Smith, the Department of Justice, prosecute.
Coming from the Hill, Trump calls for termination of election rules in Constitution to overturn 2020 election. Former President Trump called for the termination of the Constitution's rules regarding elections to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election following the release of more detailed information about Twitter's role in suppressing a story about Hunter Biden. Y'all do know it's 2022. He just announced his 2024 run for president. You do realize he's doing this to have the protection of the presidency to avoid prosecution. Now, if he's truly innocent, what is he afraid of? But let's continue. A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution, Trump said in a Truth Social post. Who taught him those words? Who taught him those words? Who wrote that post for him? I know it's not Ivanka or Jared. Baron, did you let your daddy see your vocabulary list? Don't do that. Our great founders did not want and would not condone false and fraudulent elections, he continued. He's kind of right there. Because George Washington's exit speech didn't even want, let me start over. In George Washington's exit speech from the White House, he never wanted this country to become a two-party system, especially during presidential elections. For whatever reason, this country just societally decided it's going to be GOP or Democrats. and we completely ignore every other party. We push people away from voting regarding every other party. We push people away from everything. And then we're like, oh, even though you're independent, you're Pink Party, you're Green Party, you're Tea Party, you got to vote with the Democrats. So you got to go. Did we forget Dixiecrats, Whig Party, Democrat Republican Party, like, look at the history, the very pasty history of the United States presidency. There's a lot of political parties up in there. Deputy White House Press Secretary Andrew Bates disagreed with this call to terminate constitutional rules, saying attacking the Constitution and all it stands for is an anthema of soul of our nation and should be universally condemned. No shit, Sherlock. Plus, how is he going to accomplish this? He's not in office. He doesn't have the support from the incoming Congress to make it happen. And this incoming Congress is already planning to waste taxpayer money and time and not be productive whatsoever. And as we've seen for the past few years, sit on social media and complain that the government isn't doing anything as if they are not the government. But conservative constitutionalist, what say ye now? What say you? Still want to stand by the lie that the January 6th self-coup was just a peaceful protest? You conceived this baby. You birthed this baby. You participation trophied this baby to the detriment of us all. Rocket. Rocket. Oh, he's definitely having a tantrum. Ivanka has distanced herself from him. Ivanka is telling the truth. Jared tried to hold on and try to lie to him. And Ivanka was like, the way this family is set up, you do what I say, you back me. I don't care who my daddy is. He done ruined me. Sister girl left the White House with all these contracts for her business and nobody to buy her products. Now we got some news regarding Marjorie Taylor Greene. Buckle up. Got about 2 videos, about almost 3 minutes. See you in 2 and 2.
Because we are going to be leading a revolution in Congress, and that is to put a referendum on the Democrat Party, a referendum through investigations and accountability. Joe Biden and his family will be a top target, and so will the CDC, the FBI, the Department of Justice, the Department of Education, Homeland Security, and many other federal government entities that have abused power and have done so much damage to our country. And it's time to starting in January of 2023.
Hold on, before I play the second video, did y'all catch that she said they would be a target? Interesting word choice. So we're going to waste money investigating people who were doing their job because you feel that their jobs should be doing whatever you say and diminishing this country into Mad Max form so you can still make $1. See, when you collapse this country, all this money that you've amassed will mean nothing. Like, y'all do realize that. 1%ers, when you drive this country into ruin, all that money is going to mean nothing. It's going to be useless to you. Because when it gets to the point where it's Resident Evil and you got to come to fisticuffs, when, it's the Walking Dead type of thing, and you got to come to fisticuffs, that money is going to mean nothing. But she had, let's go on to what she had to say regarding Fuentes.
Looks like Marjorie Taylor Greene has officially condemned Nick Fuentes. most people in this country has no clue who Nick Fuentes is. And if they heard his statements that he makes, they would want nothing to do with him. He sounds like a very immature young man saying hateful things about people and using a people group, talking about people he doesn't like by an entire people group, which is horrible. Why would he ever do that? And then also saying, "Oh, I'm not racist," or "I'm not these things." Yeah, you are if you talk that way, because that's how you sound. And I don't know why Kanye West would align himself with that. It makes no sense to me whatsoever, because the reality is, why would anyone want to follow or hang out with someone that condemns an entire group of people constantly when he knows nothing?
That's right. Why would anyone want to follow or hang out with someone like Nick Fuentes?
Can we give a round of applause for Russia? Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. We are honored, we are humbled and excited to welcome to the stage right now for our first speech, and we love to get to know her much better. I think this is going to be the beginning of something great. The representative from Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
You seem to have no problem hanging out with him previously. And then she even defended speaking at this white Christian nationalist conference.
I just saw so many people were tearing you apart for that, and it's not unfair.
They did, and I resent the reaction because I don't believe in canceling people.
Totally.
And I think that's wrong. And I don't know why it's wrong to talk to everyone. Why is that wrong?
The internet always remembers.
But when has she been willing to talk to everyone? Do you all remember her stalking down a Sandy Hook survivor? Do you remember her taunting a school shooting survivor online? Do you remember her hanging a transphobic sign outside of her office, her congressional office? Do you remember her whole Jewish space laser theory? She consistently condemns people, but she found time to make it out to a good old parade to say, you know what, I'm still the face of Christian nationalism, as an adulterer and a divorcee who is still fighting to keep her divorce record sealed. Wonder why. But she went from, I don't get why we can't talk to everybody, while she wasn't talking to everybody, to I don't believe in canceling people, to trying to cancel Nick Fuentes because she needs to distance herself. And she goes, well, I don't know why Kanye would want to be with them, because remember, Friday, I told y'all she had reached out to her former intern, Milo Yiannopoulos, to have a meeting with Kanye. And once again, check the links in the description of this video. But from one cuckoo crackpot female conservative to the next, Kari Lake is continuing to pull a Trump. Yeah.
This video is made, of course, for educational purposes only. Having said that, Kari Lake is not happy. You see, Arizona had to officially certify the election results, which means Katie Hobbs wins, and Kari Lake is not happy about that. And what she compared it to is, giving delusional.
I wish I could tell you it surprises me, but it doesn't, Steve. I mean, this is akin to making a vote with a gun to your head. I mean, they were under duress, and I don't know how that even holds up, and I'm glad to see that we have some patriots who are willing to fight. This is a debacle, and we need to fight this.
Kari, fight what? Each county has a deadline in which they need to certify the votes. By law, they had to certify the votes, and she wants to compare it to making a vote with a gun to your head. Seriously? As a kid, I used to play a lot of different sports, and I loved the competition. I loved to win. Did I hate losing? Yes, I did. But if I lost, I just knew it's because I wasn't good enough, my team wasn't good enough, we needed to be better. Kari Lake, I can already tell she is a fan of participation trophies. I can already tell if she lost a game, she was kicking and screaming, claiming that the refs were paid. Y'all already know, she is 100% that parent at her child's AAU game. Until Kari Lake grows up, she should not hold an elected position anywhere. Asking Kari Lake to be the governor of anything is like putting a baby in charge of the stove. Sooner or later, something is going to be touched, and everything is going to burn down. In the end though, Kari, if there was election fraud, they would have found it by now. Steve Bannon keeps saying, oh yeah, there's all this election fraud. Mike Lindell doesn't go a day without talking about his cyber guys. Like, Kari, at first it was kind of funny you were doing this, but now you're just dragging it on. It's no longer funny anymore. It's really just sad at this point. Why don't you just concede like a normal human being with class? On a final note though, shout out again to Katie Hobbs on her very, very fair elected win as the governor of Arizona. Arizona, y'all made me really happy with that one. I am so proud of you. You guys finally elected a pro-choice governor. Maybe Arizona isn't actually that bad. Maybe one day I'll actually come down and visit.
I just have one question for Kari Lake at this point. Sweetheart, when are you going to stop trying to passe blanche so hard? We see why you use the lightning filters from Zoom. We see why you keep your hair so short. There's a Netflix movie you should watch. And maybe you need to revisit Imitation of Life. Just saying. You know what? Let's roll with the Fuentes food fight, and then we'll go into what the GOP is claiming to condemn. We'll go into Fuentes food fight. I'll come back, and then we'll get into what the GOP is claiming to condemn. Let's go.
Family, this story comes from California, and your boy Nick Fuentes, he found out the hard way that he is not welcome in Los Angeles because he had a bit of a disagreement, a physical disagreement at an In-N-Out Burger in California. So let's get deeper into this story. And so we find out that according to TMZ, there is some interesting information coming from this skirmish that happened at the In-N-Out Burger involving the self-described white nationalist Nick Fuentes. And according to the evidence that was obtained by TMZ, Nick Fuentes threw a cup of liquid at people, and it doesn't look like he's being charged there. It looks like he's just throwing that prematurely. Not a good look, Nick. Not a good look. And so shout out to that couple in that In-N-Out Burger. Congratulations on fighting against white supremacy.
Let me also add this. Fuentes started it. He started it. Fuentes does not have the money, the juice, nor the connections to have private security. And I don't think the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers can come through and try to be his security because, one, most of them initiate each other by getting punched in the gut and spewing out names of cereals. They are incels like him. This is a man who believes that a man sleeping with a woman is gay. That's not how words work, but okay. And he obviously can't fight. He's banking on his white privilege and him being a pseudo straight white man and being able to call the police, doing it for him. He wants to be a martyr. I think he truly wants to wear the badge of a black eye to forward his point. Just like all the fake stories we've seen over the years of people vandalizing their own property and claiming that BLM did it or Antifa did it, even though Antifa is nothing more than an ideology and just stands for anti-fascism. But the GOP condemns what now?
So Republican Ronna McDaniel and the current chair of the RNC came out and condemned Kanye West's remarks and said that the Republican Party has no place for Kanye, Nick Fuentes, and others. Well, that's simply not true, because here's Marjorie Taylor Greene with Nick Fuentes. Here's another picture of them together. Here's two Republican congressmen with Nick Fuentes. Here's Republican Paul Gosar holding an event with Nick Fuentes. So I'm sorry, what were you saying, Ronna? Because the pictures tell a different story.
This video is for educational purposes only. Yeah.
Most people in this country has no clue who Nick Fuentes is. And if they heard his statements that he makes, they would want nothing to do with him. He sounds like a very immature young man saying hateful things about people and using a people group, talking about people he doesn't like by an entire people group, which is horrible. Why would he ever do that?
Like the
and then also
LGBTQ?
say, no, I'm not racist or I'm not these things. Yeah, you are if you talk that way, because that's how you sound. And I don't know why Kanye West would align himself with that. It makes no sense to me whatsoever, because the reality is, why would anyone want to follow or hang out with someone that condemns an entire group of people constantly when he knows nothing? What has he ever done in his life? What government position or when has he ever been elected? Really, how is he so all in the know about all these things that he talks about? Because he knows nothing more than anyone else that can sit there on the internet and Google things and look up information, whether it's real or not, and then talk about it on a podcast or on some social media site. But that's what I'm seeing, and I think it's sad.
So Marjorie is condemning Nick for talking about a people group, like the LGBTQ plus or BLM, and condemning them on a podcast, saying information that could be right or wrong, that she, Googled or DuckDuckGo'd. Holy, y'all, if you listen to this woman and you like this woman, this is the biggest fucking self-own I've ever seen in real time. Meanwhile,
she's just weak. She'll go and say something edgy to get attention, and then when the pressure comes, she buckles. She's going to be a MAGA mom and QAnon and all that, and then the second that Kevin McCarthy reprimands her and she loses her committee, she goes and apologizes. And she's going to say, the COVID is like the Holocaust. Oh, so edgy. Wow. Drink up all that attention. Here's the attention you ordered. And then the second it gets too hot, I'm sorry. I went to a Holocaust museum and da. And it's like, so I'm over her. It's like, and by the way, she wants to be the face of Christian nationalism. She's divorced. Like, she's divorced and she's like actively an adulterer.
and lastly, Marge was trying to protect Ye in her video. He said all the things that Nick believes.
Oops, sorry. Several blogs on one topic, and I don't know which one you're taking offense to. So just put it out there. If you can't put it in the public, don't send it to me behind closed doors. Because if you keep doing that, I'm gonna start posting you stuff. But while Trump was still in office, it was highly speculated that he was selling pardons.
You guys want some tea? Because I've got some tea. Come here. Remember the Hammonds. Not those Hammonds, the other Hammonds. They were convicted in 2012 of setting fire on public lands that they had leased after illegally killing deer on the land. 5 years sentence set off a firestorm of crazies, which involved a wildlife refugee in Oregon and the Bundys. Well, Trump apparently pardoned them for a quid pro quo. They paid for pardons. At least that's what they're investigating right now. Katie Porter is and another person. Republican lawmaker told this guy Ingram that Trump was seriously considering the developer's request to the Interior Department in 2018 that the men be pardoned. The very next day, a $10,000 donation to Trump's failed super PAC was put into the bank, and then Donald Trump pardoned them. Not only did Donald Trump pardon them, the very last day in office, granted them a new grazing permit after they had set fire to the land for illegally killing deer. Biden administration later rescinded that offer, and I love that for them. Oh, that's some tea.
Do you know how sick in your soul you will be after you paid a good chunk of change? I don't care how much money you got in your bank account, a good chunk of change for you no longer to be pardoned, for you to still have to be prosecuted. And isn't it ironic, don't you think, that all these staunch Trump supporters have all this criminal activity going on? Now, this closing video, actually, I have one more video before I want to play the closing video. Well, second to closing video. Finally, some white folks admitting they don't understand what CRT is. Before you say, Taz, you're reaching. Sweetheart, I don't ever reach, okay? Only thing I'm ever going to reach for is a beverage. But let's roll this footage.
I hear lots of talk of CRT. In fact, there was a huge article written on me where I was a CRT teacher, which I had no idea.
That's critical race theory, right?
It is, and I didn't know that, but I was teaching.
Do you think that should be taught in schools, honestly?
I don't know what it is. I don't know what they're talking
They're
about.
teaching that, I guess what I've heard. I'm not an expert at all. I'm not an expert on any theory, except the DH is bad. But it's putting people in by their race, and to me, it's hard to teach history without showing that, yes, white people have had a little bit better run in this country. That's just a fact. But maybe they go over the top with it.
Well, I mean, I don't know, because I've never seen anybody do it. Like you, I hear these anecdotes, and then when I say, well, let me see the lesson plan, let me see the teacher who's teaching this, no one can produce anything. And if I'm a CRT teacher, then I'm pretty sure that you guys are going to be okay being in my class because I taught, slave narratives, and that made me a CRT teacher.
Did you catch that? She taught actual history, unwhitewashed history. And they're like, oh, you're teaching CRT. And that gentleman said, yes, white people have had it better in this country. But from the rhetoric that he was hearing, that he has been told, CRT just divides people by race. No, that's what racism, systemic racism and oppression does, divides people by race, and then lies about it, gaslights people. Folks, it's time to stop being upset and angered and protesting things that you haven't even decided to educate yourselves on. Now, I realize some of y'all have. You just don't want your children to open up a textbook and see you or their grandparents, their aunts and uncles, their cousins doing egregious things. You don't want the truth regarding the basis of racism being taught. You don't want your children understanding how capitalism began within the United States. And you don't want the deep-seatedness of racism taught. Now, this last video that I'm going to give commentary on, I'm going to play it and then I'm going to pause it at a part that I want to see if y'all notice something. Let's go.
You guess who it is?
We have 4 of these talented tots with us here in the studio. So let's meet our panel and the kids right now on To Tell the Truth. Kitty Carlisle. This is just remarkable because I figure, you know, at least 1 out of 4 we got to have mayhem by now, well, but everybody's so happy.
I've got a jewel thief here.
I wouldn't hold mine because I'm afraid I'll break it.
I wouldn't hold mine because I'm afraid I will break it. What do you notice about this child? And he says it and looks back at the white woman. And see, this is why we say white women uphold white supremacy. And white women are the cheerleaders for white supremacy. Because every time a white man says some foul, fucked up shit, he's always looking for the closest white woman to back it up. And when a white woman does or says some foul shit, she looks for a white man to come and be her knight in shining armor. And see, this is why a lot of people are against transracial adoptions. The adoption system is already messed up, but let's go ahead and finish the video and see who this baby grew up to be. Because on this video, when it was originally sent to me, I ran to the comment section after I saw this segment, this first part where I paused it at. No one caught that. Everyone was caught up on this.
Well, all right. Now, all these bright-looking youngsters either have appeared or are just about to appear very soon professionally on television. Now, seen with Kitty Carlisle is Christian Slater, a 1-year-old who appeared on TV for Pampers. Yeah.
Everybody was, oh, Christian was such a cute baby. Da, 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 da. Not seeing Black and brown individuals as human is so ingrained into the psyche of the globe that no one caught that he called that poor little girl it. That the body language of every other parent was very loving and comforting, reassuring their child everything's okay. And did you catch the body language of that little girl? I bet you didn't. I bet you looked at the headline and your whole focus was, oh, let me guess who it is. Now let me pose this question to you. In your day-to-day life, how many times do you focus on the headline and overlook racism or race-based abuse happening right before your eyes, right in earshot of you? Just a little food for thought. As always, thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it on your social medias. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell so that anytime I upload anything, you will be amongst the first to know. And as always, each one teach one, each one reach one. And I will see you tomorrow for Monday Mayhem.
This is a woman who stood between America and a dangerous medication twice. Dr. Frances Oldham Kelsey received her doctorate in pharmacology from the University of Chicago and later received her MD from the same university not too long after. She then took up a job at the FDA reviewing requests to license new drugs. September 1960, a new drug application arrived on the desk of the medical officer at the FDA. The new drug was Kevidon, a drug that was already being sold in Europe to pregnant women with morning sickness. It appeared to be a routine application. All it needed was a stamp of approval. But Dr. Kelsey saw some safety data that didn't sit right with her. So she reached out to the manufacturer, William S. Merrill Company of Cincinnati, for more information. Merrill responded, but also complained to Dr. Kelsey's bosses for being questioned by this lady. But Dr. Kelsey's unique background in both medicine and pharmacology proved the perfect combo to truly understand and spot potentially harmful data in a drug study, or lack thereof in this case. The application heavily relied on anecdotal testimony rather than clinical data. So Kelsey insisted that Merrill provide hard evidence to prove his claim that Kevadon, quote, had no lethal dose, a claim that no other drug can make. As Paracelsus says, the dose makes the poison. In addition to this, the British Medical Journal published a letter from a physician in February 1962 that reported cases of peripheral neuritis, or nerve damage of the hands and feet, in patients who took Kevadon, also known as thalidomide. So Dr. Kelsey wrote Merrill back saying that, quote, the burden of proof that a drug is safe lies with the applicant. In this connection, we are concerned that apparently evidence of peripheral neuritis in England was known to you, but not forthrightly disclosed. She also, with great prescience, required Merrill to show proof that the drug wasn't harmful to the fetus. Merrill was livid and phoned Dr. Kelsey's boss, Dr. Ralph Smith, and told him that he considered this letter borderline libelous, and wanted to know how Dr. Smith was going to personally handle Dr. Kelsey. Dr. Smith firmly told Merrill that the agency stands behind Dr. Kelsey.